Hello, everyone. I'm Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness. And for those of you who aren't aware, it has been a heck of a month for me. Last couple of weeks have been a little bananas. I had to put my beloved little kitty down. For those of you who have been following, he just didn't make it, unfortunately. Then I was in a serious car accident, destroyed my car. But the fortunate news is, not a scratch on me 2 weeks before the wedding, not a scratch on me, not a bruise, and the other driver was perfectly fine as well. Then I find out my cousin passes away, and then here comes the good stuff. For those of you who didn't catch us, Achieve TV was a sponsor of the Legacy Leadership Summit with the LA Tribune. So I was able to interview the greats like Dame Marie Diamond from The Secret, Sharon Lecter from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you name it. Mark Victor Hansen was on the show. There are so many amazing people, and Achieve TV, the network that you guys are watching right now, was able to sponsor that event. So it's been really exciting. Plus, get this, you guys, I just got married. So I am beyond excited and happy that I get to spend my life with my husband. That sounds so weird to say. I'm still not used to it. And I'm going to keep my last name for the show, but not in real life. So just so you guys know what's going on with me, but I'm excited. I met this amazing guest just not that long ago in Denver. We were up at a conference together in Denver, and I was lucky enough to spend some time with her, and I'm excited to bring her on. Her name is Wendy Watson. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you? And congratulations on the nuptial.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, when we were together, that's all I was talking about, basically. But but today we're talking about you. So this is going to be a fun conversation. Yeah. I always love to start out with a really simple question to get the ball rolling. And that is for you to tell a bit about yourself and your wellness journey.
Well, I was a corporate pawn for the longest time, turned massage therapist, turned spiritual therapist. I grew up in a chaotic child of divorce, and step families were not any better and surrounded by addiction and all the things. So, I made bad choices earlier in life. And after my second divorce, I decided to figure out what was going on and clean it all up and try and be the best version of myself.
Well, that sounds like quite a feat. How has that played into, you recently wrote a book. Does it have anything to do with that? I want to jump into what you've accomplished since then.
Yeah. So the caveat, the thing that started it all off was when my audit manager, not many people know this, but I'm kind of a perfectionist, or at least I used to be. But that didn't bode well for my relationships with my coworkers because I was quite demanding and everything had to be perfect. And, so my audit manager came to me one day and he gave me what started the beginning of the change of the rest of my life. He gave me what I call the 70-20-10 rule. As long as all the invoices got processed through properly, only 20% got escalated and 10% they were willing to write off. And I was like, wait, you're willing to write stuff off? And he was like, yeah, we kind of expect to. And then I was like, wait, I don't have to be perfect. He basically gave me permission not to be perfect. And then I took that 70-20-10 rule and I started looking at it in forms of communication and logistics. And I think there's 16 different ways that I mention it in my book. And it changed everything. It changed my external communication, my internal communication, how I operate my businesses. It's just, yeah, it was amazing.
I love this idea. We were actually talking about this on the Leadership Summit, and that was this idea of being a leader, not only to other people, but within our own lives and to ourselves, and how perfectionism and this idea of having to get absolutely everything right from the very beginning, even if you've never done it before, etc., and how paralyzing that can be in people's lives. So I just love this idea of giving permission to someone to be human.
I mean, we are, right? We are human.
Yeah.
And you can't possibly know everything about everything.
No. And
So
also, it's interesting how we expect that of ourselves.
it
To have this
is.
expectation of perfection from the very beginning, because, I'm the network president of Achieve TV, and I have a bunch of new hosts that come on and do shows, and they have this expectation of themselves that the pilot is going to look like the finale. That doesn't even happen on sitcoms. People move in the sitcoms, yet they don't move. The set changes, but they haven't moved. So it's kind of fascinating how it can really stunt how we're being and how we show up in our own lives. So I'm curious, how did you create such an amazing tool so that other people can sort of work through this? Was it like, did it take you a long time to write the
Oh, yeah.
book? What was the process for you?
So writing the book didn't take long. I was really feeling the calling to write the book. My grandmother told me I needed to write a book on her deathbed as she's passing, and all the things. So I just really felt like once I decided which book I was going to write first, the information just kind of flowed, and it only took me 5 months to write the book.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
Yes.
Did you deal with this is the internal critic saying all these things about how it wasn't good enough? Or did you just allow it to be?
I just allowed it to be. I just, there's really that sense of surrender, right, to the creative process. And if this is what I'm meant to do, then I'm just going to let it come out however it needs to come out. There was a point where I did restructure the entire internal side of the book. And so I had to move some things around. But other than that, like I really just let it come out however God wanted it to come out.
I love that. I love the idea too of surrender, because it gets such a bad rap. People think of it as giving up, as opposed to being in flow with what is going on in the current moment, instead of fighting what is.
Right? Instead of fighting all the obstacles and
Yeah.
everything that's trying to present itself to you, surrendering to the organic nature will make it so much more authentic and just flow better. Now, it is my first book. I don't expect it to be a New York Times bestseller by any means, or the best book that I ever wrote. I mean, I hope it is, but but it's my first book. So I anticipate,
You're
certain
allowing
level.
the grace of
Yeah,
it being what it is.
exactly.
And kudos to you, because I know what it takes to write a book. And if it were easy, everybody would have one.
Exactly.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
amazing. So, I guess my question to you would be, how has the way that you helped people evolve throughout the years? Because you mentioned being a massage therapist, and then you mentioned writing a book that doesn't mention massage. So, how does it all tie together?
Um, well, in order for me to show up for my clients as a massage therapist, I had to be open and vulnerable. And in order to do that, I have to take ownership in my choices and the direction that my life went in, right? It's not fair to my client to expect them to open up and receive if I, the practitioner who is working on them, am not willing to open up and receive or to give. So if I expect them to be able to lay everything out on the table and get everything out while they're in my room so that they can go on and be a better person when they leave, then I also have to be open and vulnerable and share. And I couldn't have done that without the 70-20-10 rule and a lot of the other healing that I did.
Wow, I love that. I love this idea of practicing what we preach, being the example, and showing people how to do it. Just, nobody likes to be sold to, nobody likes to be
Nope.
told what to do.
Nope.
However, if they can see somebody else doing it and getting the results that they want, paving the way, then I think that makes a huge difference in people's lives, more so than trying to tell somebody what to do. I like that. And that whole
Yeah.
idea of, practicing what we preach is just so important in my opinion. So my question is, and this is, I don't know how you're going to feel about this question. However, I'm going to share mine if I
I'm
need
good.
to, if I need to. Okay. Do you ever find yourself not always practicing what you preach when it comes to that?
Yes. And that's where that 10% and the 70-20-10 rule comes in, right? I have to allow a little bit of leeway to not be perfect.
I love that.
Right. So there are times where I'm not practicing all the tools that I need to practice or being the best version of myself. But then it's like, you step back out of it and you're like, okay, I had my little bit of time to be in the itty bitty shitty committee or whatever you want to call it. And now it's time to get the tools back out. And right. So you kind of have to do that in order to remember to use the tools. I think it's almost necessary to lose your way for a second.
Yes.
In order to be reminded what path you want to be on and what tools you want to use.
I like this idea too. There's a saying in AA, and it's progress, not perfection. And I always like that. I mean, there's so many. Sorry, I'm super itchy. I've got allergies really bad. There's so many different sayings though that are so crazy, but they all they're there for a reason, like the progress, not perfection, because as long as you're moving forward, and this idea too of showing yourself grace where, yeah, you didn't do it perfect. Like, for example, I know that ice cream is not good for me and it doesn't make me feel well. I know this. And sometimes I choose to eat it anyway, knowing full well what's going to happen.
Right.
And that's okay because I did it with consciousness and I made the choice. I didn't just do it and then wonder, why am I feeling sick?
Right. And it's not like you're eating a gallon a week, right?
No.
So,
it might be a little cup or yeah, exactly. So I like showing ourselves. It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray.
There's a lot of gray. I actually live in gray. There's rarely ever black and white for me.
I like that. So since you work with energy, because that is what you do, whether people realize that or not, yeah, you're manipulating it physically.
Yeah.
But do you have a morning ritual or something to prepare yourself for the day, just in order to be able to show up as your best self?
Yes. So, and I've done it for as long as I can remember, for as long as my mother can remember, and it used to drive her crazy because I would take a half an hour, 45-minute shower every morning and use all the hot water. And I still do it to this day. I do I let the shower run and I build a bath. And then once it's full, then I will actually bathe. Like, I don't drink coffee or anything. So that is my way to get neutralized and energized by the water and kind of wake up from getting out of bed and loosening up all the muscles from being stiff in bed all night, all the things. And yeah, so I have to have my 30 to 45-minute bath shower
combo
every morning. Yep.
I love that you shared that because that's always been a calming thing for me. Whenever I'm upset, I take a shower. There's
It's
something
a
very soothing.
well, water is very neutralizing and
Mhm.
it's an energy creator. But it's also great to use it for transitions, like between work to a date night or from work to downtime at night where you can just unwind. It's a great transition tool.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate the power of water just in general. I always think too about how important, because I don't know if you know this, but about the moon. Well, we know that the moon affects the tides,
Yes.
but the moon also, there's a land what's it called? Tide, basically. The land
Mhm.
rises and falls with the moon as well. New York City, actually, I think it's 14 inches. It raises and falls
Really?
every day. Yeah, the land part, not the ocean, the land
Right.
part.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because the land is floating on top of the water, kind of
Well,
in. Yeah.
the water's on the land, but
Yeah.
it actually literally compresses and it actually moves. And it
Mhm.
literally, I mean, it's scientifically proven. And it's
Yeah.
so interesting to me how, people don't realize if that is, we're all made up of the same thing. Down to the atoms and whatnot, how that's affecting us. So, I like this idea of using outside tools like water to help stabilize, neutralize, and help us with the things that are going on, maybe mentally, emotionally, or even physically. What are some other
Yep.
things that you do to ground yourself?
I use a tuning fork. Unfortunately, I don't have it here. It's a mid-ohm tuning fork. I don't know if you've ever seen one, but you just activate it and I'll either put it around my third eye
Mm-hmm.
or on each of my ears. It's used for deep relaxation. It's used to balance your frequency. So I'll use that. I'll use meditation. I love going for a walk around the lake that I have
Water.
around, right? At least near the water, right? Even if you're not in it, I love being near it. Like, even like even when I was writing my book, I went camping up to Salida and I made sure I was 10 feet from a creek.
Hmm.
And I wrote a whole chapter that day because I could
Wow.
just sit there and relax and enjoy the sound of the water rushing on the rocks and or even when I get overwhelmed with creating all my content, right? I'll stop, I'll pause, I'll go for a walk around the lake and get my thoughts together and just get that energy out and all the things.
No, I love that. On that note, we are going to go to a commercial break. It is that time. So we'll be back in just a minute. And for those of you who are watching us live, I just want to say hello to you. We're going to go to commercial break. But when we come back, we are going to talk about Wendy's book and just all the good things that it teaches and all the fun stuff. So we'll be back in just a minute.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I am Julianne Meyer, and today's guest is Wendy Watson. Let's bring her back. Welcome back, Miss Wendy.
Thank you.
So we sort of touched on your book a little bit, but I'd really like to start sharing a lot more about that. And here's the name: Verbal Turbulence, the 70-20-10 rule. And I'd like for you to dive into what people can expect, all the fun stuff.
Oh my goodness. So there's all kinds of fun, juicy chaos that I talk about.
I love
Not
that.
not just the verbal turbulence, but being raised in a divided home, having step families that stole and lied from each other, verbal and emotional abuse from my exes, and even losing a child.
Oh, wow.
So all kinds of juicy stuff that normal everyday people deal with on a regular basis. And what I did to, how I got through it and what I did to overcome all that stuff.
I think that is a really fabulous way to structure something, because it's all fine and dandy to talk about it when everything's great, but it's like, what happens when things are rough?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
And
I love this idea.
what habits are we taking on that maybe need to be tweaked a little bit or corrected? Maybe we don't, like, one of the habits that I learned from my family was to repress. Right? And with having volatile ex-husbands, it was easy to repress because I didn't want to start the argument or add any additional arguments because we were already arguing a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by repressing it and not speaking my mind and not speaking my voice and all the things, it ended up waiting until I just totally exploded, and it was a bigger argument than what it needed to be to begin with. And those kind of habits are some of the things that I address in the book.
Well, a lot of people wouldn't think of a habit as a way of being pattern, like repressing things. Or for me, emotional eating is a habit. It's a bad habit, but it's a habit I have. Most people think of habits as brushing your teeth. And so I like the idea of creating behaviors or calling them habits, because that's really what it is. I mean, you and I both know that, but a lot of people don't. So was it hard for you to share some of these stories and put it out there for people?
You would think that it probably would be with all the things that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction, losing a child, like all that kind of stuff. But like I said, I just felt really called for it, and I just felt like it was time and it was what I meant to do. So it wasn't really hard. I think it was actually a blessing, because it created conversations between me and my family and me and the man that I got pregnant by that opened up even more conversation and allowed some healing to happen because of the book.
Wow.
So it was actually amazing. I actually have a much deeper connection with my sister now. My mom got to release some of the stuff that she, mom and daughters, some of that old baggage that she never felt comfortable talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
And him and I got to have a conversation about that we haven't talked about in 8 years. So
I love that, because a lot of people end up, It changes relationships no matter what when you share personal things that involve other people.
Right. And although I
So,
don't name any names, they are still in the book. And so I wanted to make sure I had their permission to share these intimate things and address
yeah.
anything that they might. And it's amazing. None of them had any qualms about what is in the book. They were all okay with exactly how it was written.
That is a blessing
Yeah.
and very unusual.
Right? It was a little unexpected. I'm waiting for like, maybe you could edit this, or maybe you could say this a little differently, but it's
Yes.
very subjective from my point of view, but it's honest and done in a loving manner to where like nobody, I don't want anybody to feel like they look bad or
Yeah.
like I'm talking about them in a negative light. So I was really conscientious of that when I was writing it.
One of my biggest pet peeves is when people hide behind honesty and for being rude or mean-spirited.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to be honest. Well, you also are being rude or hurtful. There are definitely ways to share things that maybe are sensitive or talk about
Mhm.
things without being mean-spirited. So I like this. I love that you asked permission and at least at the very least gave a heads up that, hey, this is coming. Nobody's name's in it, but I wanted you to know and be aware and be as comfortable as possible. That goes a long way. Whereas if maybe you hadn't done that, it might not have had the same reaction.
Right, exactly. And I was that abrasive person growing up, right? I had very angry, selfish communication, and I am a truth speaker, but the way it came out was just as you described. It was rude, it was condescending, like all the things. So that's why I wanted to make sure to bring that up. You know, the 70-20-10 rule really got me to think about other people's perspectives
Yeah.
and how to tailor my message, how to say what I want to say, what I need to say, but tailor it to them.
Communication is so important, and not only what we say, but how we say it and our body language. All the ways we actually communicate besides words are also important.
Mhm.
I love that you did this because it gives hope for other people who maybe want to share their story and feel a little bit nervous. And I'm glad that you shared that you were like that as a child. And I feel compelled to share that I have definitely been like that and hidden it behind the idea that I lived in New York. Yeah. And there is a truth, some
Yes,
bit of a truth to that. It didn't start until I lived there. However, there's a way that you can share the same information that is a lot more digestible than being super angry and abrupt and all of these
yeah,
things that come along with it. There, yeah. So I feel
for
compelled
sure.
for those of you who are feeling judged by me, it's pointing it at myself first. So
My mom always used to say, we never know what's going to come out of Wendy's mouth.
oh, man. Yeah, I used to be meek and mild. I'm not anymore, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's interesting. So I like this idea too of it sort of being something that you can learn. You can learn the 70-20-10 rule. You can learn how to interact with yourself and with others in a different, more healthy way. So I'm curious, do you share anything about how you speak to yourself
Oh
in
my
the
gosh.
book?
So, right. So, my main 3 chapters are outer turbulence, right? What you're
Mhm.
projecting, what you're
Yeah.
saying. And then inner turbulence is what you're projecting and saying to yourself. So, I talk about body shaming. I talk about calling ourselves negative names, right? All
Mhm.
the things that we do internally.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that because a lot of us aren't even aware that we're doing it. It's so second nature and ingrained. We don't notice it anymore. It's like breathing air.
Yep.
But when it's brought to our attention, we can start paying attention to how we speak to ourselves, and not in a way to make ourselves wrong and yet another way in our own mind, but as a tool to see how we're talking to ourselves. I love that. Do you,
Right. It's okay to feel bloated.
Yeah.
Right. And
Thank
it's
you.
okay to want to wear clothes that navigate that. But that doesn't mean you need to punish yourself for feeling that way or not feeling in your sexiest moment. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think now the way that I've started speaking to myself a little bit differently is, would I say that to somebody else? If I would never say that to somebody else, why am I saying it to me?
Right.
Why am I being so hard on myself? And how we treat ourselves is also how we treat other people. It can't be two completely separate things. It's so,
what, right? How you're feeling inside comes outside.
Exactly.
Right.
It's just that circle.
Yeah. So what do you want? So the question is what do you want to project? Do you want to project that negativity? Do you want to project loving and kindness? What I call it in the book is the ripple effect.
One of my favorites.
Right? So my favorite example is when you go to the grocery store and you see the yummy cookies up on the shelf and you ask your inner self, do I really want this? And your inner self says no. And then you go and you buy it anyways and you eat them anyways. There's a ripple effect. That's a conflict to your inner self. And that one little conflict has a ripple effect.
Exactly. Because you're living out of integrity. You're not living in integrity. How do you trust yourself if you don't even listen to yourself?
Exactly. And how can you expect your home or your work life or your communication to be in alignment with you if you can't even make decisions that are in alignment with you?
Ooh, that was good. Can you say that one more time? I know you're like, wait, what did I say?
How can you expect your home in which you raise your kids and your mental health and all the things, or your work life, or your physical health? How can you expect that to be in alignment if you're still buying the cookies off the shelf and not making the decisions that are in alignment with you?
Exactly. It starts with you.
It starts with tuning into yourself and making decisions that are in alignment with your soul, with your spirit. Every little choice that you make that is not in alignment with that has a ripple effect.
It does. Well, and I think about tidal waves that start out on the other side of the world and end up destroying.
Right. And that's what most people are expecting, right? That's what gets most people's attention is the big tidal wave. Right? They don't pay attention to the little ripples. Because the little ripples are what turns into the tidal waves.
Well, I'm going to use myself as an example. I've been needing to slow down because I've had so much on my plate, and lo and behold, I get into a rip-roaring car accident. Who's slowing down now?
Yep. You're like, okay, done. Message her, tidal wave. Right?
I didn't listen. I was cramming everything in before the wedding, everything. And I can handle it. And then all of a sudden it just, no, you can't.
I know. So the other question then becomes, right, is yes, maybe you can handle it, but should you?
There you go. That's a better question. I like that. That's a better question. Yeah, I could handle it, but I'm also going to run myself into the ground.
And then are you really being present and enjoying the journey onto getting married and that whole thing if you're so focused on
Yeah, and was I being present to that? I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be present had I not slowed down. And I tell myself that all the time. I always like to use the example when you drive somewhere and you're thinking, oh my God, how'd I get here? Because you weren't there. You were in the car moving it, but you weren't there.
Right. You weren't paying attention to where you were going and what exit you just passed and how many miles you still have to go, or 1/10 of a mile. You weren't enjoying
Exactly.
the scenery and enjoying the drive. You were up here.
Exactly. Where are you living? In your body or in your mind?
Exactly.
I love that idea. Well, we are going to go to one more commercial break. We'll be back in just a minute. And I already said hello to everybody who is watching us live. Now it's my turn to say hello to everybody who is watching us on demand. Thank you so much for being here. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about, I want to talk about massage actually, and more about the book, of course, because I think that all of this goes hand in hand in ways to the 70-20-10 rule. So we'll be back in just a minute. No, not that one. We'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Now we're really back this time. Gotta love that live TV. Let's bring our guest Wendy back to the show. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Oh, isn't that so much fun? I love it when I make boo-boos. That's at 10% right there.
That's right.
So before we get going into our conversation, I popped up for those who didn't figure this out, this is the cover of Wendy's book. And we've been talking about it, but people, where can they buy it? You didn't mention that.
It's not quite published yet. It should be. It's going to be published this month.
Perfect.
Hopefully in the next week or two, but definitely by the end of the month.
So people can
they'll be able to find it. They can go on the website below and go to my media page, and they can find out some information on that. But it will be both in bookstores and on Amazon, and eventually audiobook.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm glad you're doing audio. Back when I had a car, I used to listen to books on audio all the time.
Well, my dad is a truck driver, and he's like, I'm just going to wait for the audio version to come out. I'm like, okay.
Well, my dad has essential tremors. It looks like Parkinson's, but it's not. It's not that serious in the same regards. It won't kill him. It's just annoying. But it makes it hard for him to read things. So he definitely loves doing that. So I love that you're including all people so that they can, get your knowledge. And I love that.
Yes.
So,
and I'm going to record it myself.
Oh, thank you. I hate it when somebody else does the voice. Come on.
What if they didn't write it? I figure the person that wrote it should also read it.
I agree with you 100%. I've always felt that way. Not everybody agrees. Actually, there's a couple authors I think maybe shouldn't read their own books because they're really dry sounding. However,
practice makes perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's more authentic because it's like you're having a conversation versus, somebody else talking about the book to you.
Versus just a recording of the book.
Yeah, it's just it's more one-on-one. It's like it's a degree of separation closer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I like that. But anyway, we've been talking about we talked about your book a little bit, and we also sort of touched on that you do massage, but I know that you are also a spiritual therapist. Is that how you said it?
Yes. Yes.
I love that. I would love for you to speak about that because I think that there are a lot of us out there that could use a spiritual therapist.
Yes. So what is spirituality, right? There's so many different terms or definitions for spirituality. From my perspective, being spiritual is developing your relationship with yourself and developing your relationship with God, divine universe, spirit, whatever vocabulary you want to use. For me, it's all the same thing, just different words used for the same thing. So, and I use tools that help you step into your self-ownership and step into your self-leadership and being self-aware and trying to figure out what it is that makes you you. Mm-hmm. And let's figure out what your agreements that you've made with yourself, which ones you want to keep, which ones you want to break and change into something else. What habits do you want to keep or do you want to change? And sometimes you have to figure out the why, which is the hard part, before you can decide whether or not you want to keep them or change them or what you want to do so that you can live in your authenticity, so that you can define and project you.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard it put that way. That sounds so much more inviting, especially because it's not coming from you're broken, we need to fix you viewpoint.
Yeah, we're all broken, but only you can decide whether or not you're broken and what part of you is broken. Nobody else can decide that.
Yeah. And I always like the idea, I think it's from the Chinese, using the gold to fill in the cracks. I don't know. I like the idea of just making things better than what they are versus good and bad.
Exactly. To me, nothing is bad because you can always learn from it. And there's always a reason why it had to be there to begin with. And now it's a choice to make. We're adults now, right? We have choices that we can make. And those choices are up to you.
Yes, they are. Oh, that's fun. So have you noticed a lot of trickle over from your different modalities?
Well, right. So it's kind of hard because my massage business was in Phoenix.
Oh,
So I was a massage therapist in Phoenix for 12 years.
gotcha.
And then I just closed that up and moved to Denver. I reopened a massage studio September 1 of 22, so just 9 months ago,
Oh, wow.
and then rebranded in January. So there is some trickle effect because, you know, when I opened September 1st, I opened as a massage studio.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then there's people coming in. So then they start asking me about what else I do.
Mm-hmm.
And now one of my regular clients, she's gone from massage work to energy work
Mm-hmm.
and trying to heal all the things that she's choosing to heal. And
I
clearing
like
out
that.
negative energy.
You know, it's interesting to me too. I had a guest on, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and she's a psychotherapist, and she was talking to a client, and they were basically done with the sessions. He had done the work that he had wanted to do with her, and he questioned her and said, "Do you see anything in me that needs fixing?" And she said, "Yes and no. I see things, but if you don't see them, then they aren't bothering you enough that we need to talk about it."
That's right.
And then I asked her the question, "Did he come back to work on those things later?" And she starts laughing and said, "Yes, he did." But if it doesn't bother you, then you don't need to change it until you
That's
need
right.
to change it.
Exactly. You know, that, like I said, like and sometimes we'll go through phases, right? It's like, okay, we think that we're done,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we go home and we spend another month thinking on it. And it's like, oh, wait, no, there are some more things that I want to change.
Yeah.
Right? That's part of the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Even in a house, you can fully decorate. You can spend $100,000 and fully decorate it and have everything you want done.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it's done, your mind is automatically going to go to, oh, I should have done this, and then I should have done that. Our minds always look for something.
Mm-hmm.
So even once we think we're done, hang tight for a minute, and your mind will start. Your mind will start working on something else.
Yeah, the next thing is on the horizon. Just you wait. It's like a freaking
What's the
carrot
next
on a stick.
project?
Oh my God, I love that. It's true. And then I can't remember who I was talking to, but we were talking about perfection and about how if things are perfect in your life, you will start creating issues.
You will.
Because it's boring.
Perfection is boring. Like, what I wouldn't even, at this point, I wouldn't even want perfection, because then it's like, okay, well, like, what's
next?
What is there to do? What's next? Yeah.
Where's the contrast? You know, as I mentioned, I've been experiencing a lot of ups and downs in the last month, but I wouldn't change any of it. And the things that I deem negative, they're not about me. You know, like my cat passing away or my cousin passing away. It's not about me. It's about what was for them. So I just happened to be a part of that. And it's interesting if you can change your perspective and surrender to it.
Yes. You know, a lot of people, when they hear that I lost a child, they do the whole empathy thing, which I think is amazing, but it's changing your perspective.
Yeah.
Right. To me, it wasn't a negative. That soul wasn't ready to be born. I actually really didn't want to have kids.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was a surprise, but it gave me, going through that experience, right? This is all about life. And we're meant to experience life. So it was, for me, it was an experience. And I got to experience something very traumatic. Don't get me wrong. It was very traumatic, major tears, bawled it all out in the hospital, all the things. But the empathy I got for other women who have experienced the same thing. outweighs the trauma.
Wow. That's the silver lining.
You know, I lost mine at 6 weeks. Wow. One of the nurses that was involved in getting me into the OR, she lost hers at 6 months.
Ooh.
That to me would be way more painful because everybody knows about it. You've already got the nursery planned. You're all excited about it. You've got a name picked out, right? Like you're so much further into the development of it. I had more empathy for her than I did for myself.
That's interesting how we do that. It's very easy to do, but we are almost out of time. So is there any final thoughts that you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Man, we've talked about so much. I don't even know.
I know. So but before you do, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to mention that your book is coming out very soon. It can be bought on the website down here below, as well as it will be available on Amazon and in bookstores. And, you know, if people want to follow you on social media as well, all of your social media handles have the same thing. So whatever your poison is, whatever your preference, people, you can pick.
Yes. So my final thoughts are just, you know, check me out on social media. If you like what I have to say, schedule a free 30-minute one-on-one confidential discovery call with me, and let's figure out how we can help each other. How can I help you be the best version of yourself? It's totally free. There's no obligations. There's nothing to lose. It's just 30 minutes.
just 30 minutes.
Right?
No, I think that's wonderful. I think a lot of people have a lot of fear of those kinds of calls. So I'm going to speak into that and say that Wendy means it.
Yes.
So, you know, if she can help you, she's going to. And if you connect great on a higher, different level, that's fabulous. And if not, then it won't be a waste of your time no matter what. So I love that. Well, Wendy, that is all the time that we have for today. Once again, I want to say thank you for being on the show. I always enjoy speaking with you. You are so much fun.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for having the platform and inviting me on.
Absolutely. And everyone, that is all the time that we have for today. We will see you again very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week.